Okay, so welcome back. This is part 2 of working with custom reliability strategies. And if you recall, in part 1, we started to create and then saved a custom strategy. And so this time we're going to turn our attention to the failure modes tab of that strategy. So of course I am in reliability strategies, and I'm going to open up the custom strategy that I had saved, and you can take a look at part 1 for details on that. And so this time around we're going to take a look at failure modes and start to populate that. So in our example here, I'm just going to add a single failure mode, but certainly you could have many different failure modes across the many different components that make up the particular piece of equipment that you're developing a strategy for. So I'm going to start out here by identifying the components and the failure modes, and then eventually start leading into the RPNs and things like that. So we can go ahead and add a failure mode here with the blue button. And the point is that we need to start out with the component that we are looking for. And of course the HVAC system that I am developing a strategy for, this is coming out of the library. So it gives me a variety of failure modes that I'm able to select from. And I could certainly build my own failure mode as well. So I'm going to focus here on the fan motor, and I'm going to go ahead and choose that and create from the selected. Okay. And so it has brought in some information about this component ahead of time, and then the rest of it I can fill this in myself. So the component is a fan motor. The failure mechanism in this case has just failed, and then the influence is normal wear and overheating. And you can see it uses this term copy that's coming out of the library. So the different failure effects of this component, well, one of them, of course, is that the fan just simply stops. Okay, the fan is stopping because of the motor. And the failure consequences could be something along the lines of the HVAC not providing comfortable temperature for building occupants. Okay. All right, so now we get into the RPN calculation. And different companies, different approaches have different numbers that they would use here. You can see out of the box, we are going to be taking a look at the severity times the probability of the occurrence of the failure. And then we're going to introduce the idea of detectability. How detectable is this failure? And that'll give me an initial RPN number. So just for example purposes here, I'm going to make this severity a 5, and I'm going to make the probability a 3. Again, this is just my starting point, and the detectability is going to be a little difficult. And so that gives me an initial RPM of 75. All right, so now the next question is, so what are we going to do about that? So these are the actions that we are going to introduce. Some may be inspections and other types. But we're just going to indicate what we're going to do over time to mitigate the RPN number here. So we're just going to go down and create this action, and I'm going to choose an action type. You can see there's several different types of actions we can take, and you can have different actions on the different failure modes if you'd like, but in my case I'm just going to choose an inspection. And I'm going to do this inspection on a recurring basis. And my action comments are going to be inspect the motor for high temperature. Okay, and making sure I spell things properly. And this is going to be an interval, and I am going to do this every 3 months. Okay. And my frequency comments, of course, the frequency may change depending on the situation I'm in, environmental or use or things like that. And I'm going to say, do this sooner if conditions warrant, such as high outside outside temperature. Okay. And again, using spelling. Okay. Now the effectiveness is something I'm going to determine ahead of time, and I'm just going to say that this is a medium effectiveness. Okay. So I go ahead and create this action, and again I could have multiple actions here for this particular failure mode if I'd like. In my case, I'm just going to do an inspection. Over here on the far right hand side, this is very important, is do you want to track this action in the tracking piece of your strategy? And so be sure that you choose tracked, because the default is not tracked. Okay, so wrapping up our failure mode development here is I need to come up with a final RPN number. So as a result of the mitigation, this inspection. So I'm going to say that the severity is, if this thing fails, is not going to be changed. I am going to say that the probability is going to be reduced. And then certainly the detectability is going to remain the same. So I want to indicate in some way what the impact to my RPM is going to be as a result of these actions. And I'm saying that this particular action is really only going to affect the probability of occurrence. But nonetheless, now my final RPM is down here to 25. You do have an opportunity to indicate any stressors that may be on the equipment. And if I look across here, certainly an HVAC system can be stressed out by a high duty cycle, certainly temperature, contamination, moisture, vibration, fluid quality, in some cases perhaps biological, and then perhaps the motor speed as well. So this particular component in the system can be affected by a lot of different things. I do have some pre-built information about discovery opportunities that come out of the library, since that's where I got the failure mode from, and I can add to or edit this, as I wish. The estimated first failures, so the indication of how this thing would fail in the very first time you ever really saw it, you could certainly leave it as unspecified. But what you may find, what you may find is that it's more of a random type thing that you would expect. Okay, again, just your choice as to how you characterize that. You want to put in a repair time, and we're just going to start out and say that takes about 3 hours. And the functional failure mode, you've got some choices here that you can identify with that. And it's a simple matter of picking which one it is. And I believe the one that I wanted to look at was functional failure with a discoverable warning period. Yeah, there we go. You'll start to hear that motor whine, or as a result of your inspections, you'll start to see its temperature start to pick up. And that describes the failure mode as well as the actions that are going to be taken. And we're just going to go ahead and save that failure mode. And there we have it on our failure modes tab, fully filled out. We are tracking it, and we have the effects of the mitigation that we're expecting between our initial RPN and our final RPN. So for the rest of the failure modes, you would go through the same process and end up with a pretty good list of failure modes here within your strategy that indicate the inspections and things that you want to take action on. And that's it for this part 2. Hope that was helpful.